You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Counts. A little break from the heat in terms of the weather, not the political heat. We are bringing the heat this morning, and I've got some great guests to help do that. Let me introduce everybody, and we'll wade in. Steve Gill, attorney, conservative television and radio analyst. You're as likely to see him here in the States as you are overseas these days, talking about American politics. Next to him, Jasper Hendricks, Democratic strategist, current chair of the Metro Fair Board. Great to have you, sir. Scottie Hughes, journalist, conservative commentator, and senior fellow at Frontiers of Freedom. Welcome back to the program. And attorney Isaac Kimes, former Democratic Senate advisor and a father of three.
That's right.
All right, that's his real claim to fame.
Most important title of his life.
I get all the Facebook pictures, and I love your kids. Guys, let's wade in. The ACLU filed suit against the state of Tennessee this past week on behalf of 7 different Metro Council people who are alleging that one of the new state laws passed by the legislature, the one that would make it illegal for local government leaders to vote on policies that favor illegal immigrants, which is all the talk these days. They say it violates the First Amendment. The sponsor of the law from Knoxville, a Republican lawmaker, disagrees. I think the Lutheran Church is also suing over Tennessee's new harboring law. The question is, will these challenges be successful? And I'll let the lawyers weigh in first, starting with the Democratic lawyer, Isaac Kimes.
From a political angle, I can't recall in recent memory any Republicans criminalizing what is clearly free speech. When you're an elected official, you kind of gain access to the ability to talk about policy, talk about your neighborhood, and do things that might sometimes be in contravention of the political will of another party. So certainly the Republicans on the state level have criminalized this, and I do wonder if this will succeed, this lawsuit. I have a belief that it will. I mean, the law has been deemed constitutionally suspect from its origins, and then you've got respected Republicans like Todd Gardenhire also worried about it. We've talked about him before, voting against it as chair of the Senate Judiciary in Tennessee. So there is some concern, I think, from both sides, and I think it's admirable what these folks are doing, and I want to see what plays out in the Chancery Court.
My question is, Steve, you're an attorney too. Is it the talking about it or the voting on the policies that could put you in conflict with the law?
Yeah, I think the First Amendment protects speech. It doesn't protect action. And what these laws are intended to do is prevent folks that are harboring, assistant, impeding ICE and DHS from doing their lawful jobs. And if you're passing legislation that encourages the actions that we've seen from folks like Afton Ben and others, I think that's where the real problem is. The other problem with this Lutheran Church lawsuit is it's not just harboring illegals, it's harboring folks who are sex trafficking, harboring folks who are trafficking humans. That's clearly going to be something that I think the legislature and everybody ought to agree. You shouldn't harbor criminals who are hiding, bringing in sex trafficking and human trafficking, and I think the Lutheran Church is way off base.
That's not what this law is about.
That's
the law
what the statute says.
That's not what it doesn't.
That's what
it says
the
no, it
statute
doesn't.
says.
It does not.
Have you read it?
It says for financial gain.
Well, if
it says for financial gain. It says for financial gain. No, you're not bringing it in for money. They're harboring people for safety. For safety concern. For safety. They're not making a dollar off of harboring person, and that's where you break the law. The law that they're talking about. It says for financial gain. It doesn't say, and that's actually what the Republican lawmakers stressed this past week in a press conference, and they said no, it's for financial gain. That's what the Republicans are saying. That's what so they're contradicting what you're saying. It's about financial gain. And then the first one, in the first part, the other lawsuit. Well, they're acting in their official capacity, and I think the Supreme Court sort of addressed that in 1982. And it's the same laws that, and the same arguments that the president is using. That as an executive and as a person, as an elected official, you cannot criminalize me acting in my professional capacity, in my elected capacity, in your official capacity. And so I think that the arguments are wrong. So the first thing is these are two separate issues. These are two
different laws, two different laws.
Yeah. But then I think the ACLU needs to take a different approach. It's not about the First Amendment speech. It's not about that. It's about them acting in their official capacity as an elected representative of their neighbors, of their neighborhoods, of their communities. And if they're acting, if the people who elected them are wanting them to do this and they're acting on their behalf, then they can use the same argument the president is using.
Scottie's got to get in for anybody else.
Their lawsuit does point out that these are official capacity acts, so I breezed over their lawsuit.
And you can talk about the court of law all you want, but then I'm going to talk about the court of public opinion. And the fact that we're having this conversation, especially in Middle Tennessee, means that you're losing in the court of public opinion. Anytime that you're going to take the side of people who have broken the law time and time again, especially those with criminal records being harboring, you're going to lose in the court of public opinion, and you are.
Well, first of all, the data that's come out says that out of the 59,000 people that are currently being detained, less than 40% of them actually have any kind of criminal record.
Okay. Now wait a minute. Let's talk about Tennessee, though. Let's talk about Tennessee. There's 2,719 men arrested. 3,854 are under criminal prosecution right now.
We have not seen that data.
3,800.
We have not seen that data.
No, it literally just came out. Tennessee District.
They came out under.
Attorney's office put that number out.
They came out of ICE, and then it came out of.
No, this came out of the Tennessee District Attorney's office. This is here locally.
You can't trust.
You don't trust the Tennessee District Attorney.
You mean
You can't trust the political people.
The Democrat district attorney?
You don't trust
The
her.
Tennessee District General Conference is one of the most political, motivated entities in the entire state.
Okay, this is data. These are hard numbers. 70.
We haven't seen it.
Hold on. 73 out of 95 counties supported these numbers.
We can say
Your
whatever
own
we want.
point-
Let's just go one at a time.
Your own point was only 40% are
No, I didn't say only. I didn't say only.
60% are
I didn't only say that because
60%
because I actually was going to agree with you from one of your points that says that if you come over here illegally, then you have committed a crime.
Exactly.
You know, but we haven't seen that either in these
I
cases.
hate to because it's going so well, but I've got to take a break. You're watching Nashville in Focus, and we will be right back.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
In an associated topic from the last segment, Mayor O'Connell was featured in a piece in the New York Times this past week saying he doesn't really want to get tangled up, and I want to get this right, in the immigration fight. My question is that inconsistent with the public comments that he has made, that he's more worried about ICE wearing masks and the way they're arresting people than he is what the illegal immigrants are doing? I'm told he's left of his base on this. Your thoughts?
Well, my thought in the case is it's not surprising that obviously the New York Times is going to praise a Democrat mayor in any city, but especially here in this case, because he's literally trying to thread. But as Steve pointed out, actions speak louder than words. His words can be the New York Times seeming like he's trying to stay out of it, but his actions are showing another result. And I think that's, he has the luxury of being in a Democrat county, a Democrat city that would re-elect a Democrat. He would not get away with this type of talk and rhetoric in a Republican area.
What was your feeling, I guess, when you read it? And I'm talking about what you say versus, to the New York Times versus what you said here in Nashville.
Look, I just want the Democrats here in New York City and throughout the country to keep defending the violent drug dealing, human trafficking, illegal aliens. Keep going to the mat on that, because as Scottie pointed out, you're losing in the court of public opinion. You look at the polls. Please, y'all keep doing that.
Jasper.
Actually, I don't think so. And I think everyone sees that this is just a distraction, that the Republicans and Republican leadership are using immigration and using this as a distraction, and we're not going to fall for it. And so we're going to keep playing this tit for tat, back and forth about language and words and everything, and it'll get settled in the court at the end of the day. But all that matters is that the American people will see that the Republicans are just trying to disguise, taking away people's social safety nets and taking food out of the mouths of children. And they don't want to see that on television.
Where's that happening?
Let's let Isaac weigh in. And I want to ask you about this as well.
Sure.
There have been questions about whether the mayor could be prosecuted. In fact, a couple of different congressional hearings are coming up. Do you think there's any way that he is even called to Washington to testify, or that he's broken a law?
No, neither. And I think that's just more political smoke. He came up with the explanation that those names of those agents was inadvertently put in and then he withdrew them. So that's certainly a little bit of a wrinkle that he's going to have to handle. Once I remembered my New York Times paywall password, I did read the article, and it was really well done.
You're going to share that with us?
You're going to share that so Nashville can read the article too.
For everyone, all of our viewers, no. And it really keyed in, I think, on what's made Mayor O'Connell successful is that he was elected as a progressive pragmatist, not necessarily as a progressive firebrand or someone that's, going to give free lunches to everyone. There's some distractions going on right now in New York that we're going to talk about later. And I think that Mayor O'Connell will continue down that track. He's very popular. He's leading a city that's successful. So whether you like it or not, he's not going anywhere.
Now,
So
Jasper, I
will
want
say.
you to weigh in on this. I have heard some people that really were supporters of the mayor who've been critical of, I guess, him not walking with them on the bike lanes on the new East Bank. So I think there's some erosion of his base. At least I have heard those voices.
I mean, he's not sitting in the office saying, "I don't want bike lanes here." I mean, I'm pretty sure he's thinking about other stuff.
They just
you
did
know,
not get
and I just think that I just think that people. I mean, we have this issue where people are actually a little bit lazy. You know, and so they throw out an idea and they want to, but no one is actually doing any follow up, and follow through and continue to have meetings and continue to have discussions, about these projects, about what's going on in the city. And it's just that you can't just throw it out there and say, okay, well, he agreed to it at this one meeting. But there's 50 other meetings that's happening after that. And you may get lost in the shuffle inadvertently. But if you're not in the meeting, if you're not there, and if you're not sitting in there,
you serve on one of those boards, so I guess you have some of those conversations.
Yes, and it's like, and there's so much happening, and so much coming at you, from different angles, and so you have to keep up with it, which means that you have to consistently stay apprised as to what's going on and all the different nuances and different changes that happens after each meeting.
I want you to get something.
But about the ICE getting their tax increase notices, they're going to be focused back on potholes and bike lanes. What he's not doing while he's taking care of illegal aliens.
Well, he's not responsible. And the city is not responsible for a lot of our streets that are here in the city. Those are state issues. A lot of these streets are maintained by the state, and
But they don't know that. They're going to look at it and go, my mayor should have a good conversation with the state.
And that's what y'all hope, that people will continue to stay ignorant so that they can vote, against their interests.
You can't.
Question for Steve here.
That was a good one.
What is the budget? What is the mayor's budget line item that says we are taking care of illegal immigrants?
Well, he's not going.
How much money is going towards
He's
that?
not going as far as New York is, but when they're doing things to
So what's the figure?
What's the figure?
I'll bring the budget next time. We'll talk the budget next time. Because he is talking
Well, he's been
about doing
criticized
everything he
for
can to help the
encouraging
illegals
people to
and
fund
block the illegals.
another
Ask Afton
fund.
Bench. He may not go to jail, but she proudly claimed she was impeding ICE and law enforcement. She put
But
it
you
on
keep
video.
talking about
She's
Afton
blocking
Bain,
it.
but
Well,
we're
she's
not.
your person.
But go call her to Congress. Call her to Congress. Call her to answer for
Arrest
that.
them.
But we're talking about doxing. But the next day, or maybe a little later in that day, Marsha Blackburn posts on Twitter, on X, pictures with her with ICE agents unmasked, saying thank you for protect. So when we start talking about hiding the identity and protecting the identity of these ICE agents, which ones are we protecting?
I don't
here?
think they had
Other
name tags
ones.
that you're going to put out.
Yes, it is. Yes, she did. She had. They were ICE.
But
They were police.
there's some
They
that
had.
can, that's according to their protocol. They can put pictures up that way. Some can, some can't.
But are we protecting whose safety? What safety?
Well, like I said, there's one law enforcement setting.
Yeah, if they were worried about it, I mean,
They would
you're-
make sure those pictures were not out there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
the undercover
But the other
agents.
ones were.
I hate to do it, but we are up against another break. The time goes like that. Stay tuned. We have a lot more to talk about. You're watching Nashville in Focus on Fox 17.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
I want to shift briefly to a state issue. House Majority Leader William Lamberth this past week urging members of Congress to pass a ban nationally that would make it illegal to offer gender-affirming care to minors across the country like he did in Tennessee. And short of that, he says, if you can't do that, then let's do it state by state. Jasper, I don't think you've had a chance to start first. Your thoughts on that? I knew you'd have one.
Right. I mean, I just think that with a lot of cases, they're trying to test the courts. And see how far they can get within the parameters of the courts, and it's just unfortunate that this is what he wants to spend his time on, when it just doesn't represent any, a very small, extremely small percentage of the population. You want to focus on that versus, of taking care of children. And you're voting against the summer feeding programs. You're voting against, TANF benefits. You're voting against things that help children succeed. But you want to focus on this. So
Steve,
it's just
your thoughts
sad.
real quickly. I'll make the
Well,
the
first
turn.
of all, this is protecting children from permanent transfiguration. It is not protecting children. When you talk about a very narrow, small part of the population, we're bending over backwards in our population to fight for transgender very small percentage, so don't talk about small percentages. And second, we are not cutting spending on children eating. There are cuts that are coming to stop illegal aliens from getting benefits, illegal aliens from getting Social Security, dead people from continuing to receive benefits. That's where the cuts are, not starving kids.
Scottie.
Okay, I'm going into the bigger picture on this one. I think you cannot, this is where Republicans mess up their messaging. You cannot talk about smaller government, bringing the power back to the states, and then try to push this as a federal issue. While I might agree with what William Lambert did in Tennessee, I'm a firm believer that the 10th Amendment, if they did not specifically lay it out, let each state decide for themselves on issues like this. And I think that's where William Lambert messes up the Republican messaging.
Isaac, you get the last bite on that one.
Support Scottie's point there as far as the William Lambert wading into national, like just stay in your lane and worry about what's going on in Tennessee. And also I want to get into the weeds a little bit here and make sure it's very important that gender affirming care also includes things like therapy. It's not all mutilation. It's not all medicine. There are things about it that are not invasive and not medical, not
But that goes into
surgical.
other areas of therapy, though. That doesn't have to fall into that category. That can fall into other
But that's
areas
obviously
of
the
therapy.
talking point.
But
I mean, it's all about mutilation, and that's what he trots out.
But
And
that's what
all he
Vanderbilt
trots
University
out.
was doing.
That's all he trots. Yeah, they were doing it.
They were
doing
absolutely
it.
doing
They were
that.
doing it.
So you can put
But there's
therapy under
also
other
therapy.
other
Recording
areas.
the business.
Sure,
There
but
was
the
some videos
talking
where they were recording
point
that
is
business.
mutilation. Republicans talk about mutilation. They're obsessed with genital mutilation. Republicans are obsessed with
And
it.
everybody should be opposed to it. There are at least 17 to 20 states that now have the blueprint that the Supreme Court approved that can follow the Tennessee law and do it in
great.
their states. Again,
Applaud
I would
that.
agree you don't have to do it at a federal level. You've got a blueprint, and if they follow Tennessee's law, they have the Supreme Court opinion.
30 seconds on another topic. Council members have reinstituted the Black Caucus. Why is that significant, sir?
It's just to bring unity and to have a focus on legislation that can help to improve the outcomes of African American communities, and to continue to laser in on like areas like 37208, where you're still seeing high incarceration numbers, and so there needs to be a little bit more intentionality there to make sure that legislation is being thought of and passed in City Council.
I just wanted to make sure we took a moment just to address that before the break. I've got one more segment coming up. We are cooking with gas, and we will be right back. You're watching National in Focus.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
A few days before we tape the program, we learned that September 12th will be the day that former Tennessee House Speaker Glen Casada and his former chief aide, Cade Cothran, will be sentenced in federal court for fraud, money laundering, things along that lines. Steve, how much time do you think they'll get? Seems like I can't remember which one of them got slightly more because there were over 15 charges apiece.
Yeah, I think it'll be real time, and I don't think they should be anticipating a pardon from President Trump like Brian Kelsey got.
Really? Isaac, what do you think?
I mean, yeah. They could
Up to
get
20 years, I think.
up to 20 years, which seems I don't
lot.
know. It just feels unlikely given the amount of controversy, given the actual amount of money that was illegally moved around. I don't know Judge Eli Richardson's history on sentencing. That would be something that we want to look at.
Sure.
And I don't know. Yeah, we'll see if they're able to hire Alex Little, who has apparently become like the pardon king of lawyers.
I was about to say, I wouldn't put that.
Chris Lee.
Get a celebrity on that. They might be pardoned. I mean, just put it on
They
that
ought to hit
side.
up Alex and I guess see what they can
If
do
we get him
there.
on Survivor or The Apprentice, he can get out.
Or show him wearing a Trump shirt 20 years ago, and he'll be pardoned and say it was political targeting.
Do you
I
think
don't think
there's
they have the
any
juice.
way these guys get pardoned?
I don't think they have the juice.
How do you not say you pardon Brian Kelsey and you're not going to pardon these
Yeah,
guys?
no, fair.
I'm sorry. That
Kelsey's
unless-
a state
I
senator.
didn't see that one coming, I'll be honest.
I didn't
just
either.
didn't see the president taking his time. Jasper, can you see it possibly happening in this case? I mean, it's not really partisan what they did.
I think if they get anything, it'll probably be, not time certain. They will not have to go anywhere.
Oh, really? You
Maybe
think
home.
there's a possibility they
or,
don't serve time in
right,
prison?
Yeah, I think or maybe home confinement, something, something small, something that's going to fit, the sort of. Like you were saying, it's up to 20 years is a lot, to think about.
Feels like a lot.
For that particular, for these particular incidences, but they did break the law, and so I think this is, and because there is a possibility of a pardon.
I think the only way they get pardoned is if Scottie has access to the auto pen.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Even then, actually, it's less likely to get pardoned for that one on that side of it.
Guys, let me try to squeeze in one more real quick. We're trying to cover so much ground. Congressman Andy Ogles sent U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi a letter saying, I think you need to I guess, look at the background of the Democratic nominee for mayor in New York, because I think he may have espoused some I guess, anti-Semitic things that would maybe make him a candidate for denaturalization, if there is such a word. Isaac, you want a piece of that?
The first thing I want to say is that Mamdani is an Arsenal supporter. I'm a Tottenham supporter, and Tottenham are European champions, and Arsenal will never sing that. But beyond that statement, I will say that Ogles is a known race baiter. He's been doing it his whole career. In 2020, he posted something that was very offensive to me personally. It was with COVID. It involved a North Korean, but involved a Korean. It was very Asian, racist. It was very unsettling to me on a personal level. Also, my mom is a naturalized citizen, so I guess we are now opening the door to denaturalizing people. This is wild.
The only way he can justify this is that if he doesn't want more New Yorkers to move to his district, and that's why he's fighting this. That's the only way. But other than that, stay in your lane. Andy, he's pretty solid in his district, but you have a lot of issues right now in his own district he could focus on a federal issue.
Exactly.
You look at Columbia right now has higher than average crime and violent crime than the state and the national level. You got a lot of work to do. If you had nothing else to do, maybe, but once again,
nothing's going to happen. This will go onto Pam Bondi's desk under the Epstein files, under all the other things he's not doing. So,
Again, it's another distraction. It's another distraction. It's something that he can send out emails to do quick fundraising, and
he's not doing any fundraising.
Get a little bit of attention, but it's not going to go anywhere, and but he's going to continue to do things like this just to keep the attention on
But I don't think it reads well in his district. I think this might read well to President Trump of the White House. I don't think this reads well in his district.
Not in Columbia.
Thank you all so much.
Columbia.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on In Focus.